Runners assembling down at the start then for the next. There's 2:55, 7 furlong handicap, and there's no doubt that the horse many people will be interested in or have backed already is the Game of Life. It's a quick return to action, and with horses it's not a computer game, they're not machines. They can't always get out of bed on the same side each and every time, particularly when they've just run quickly the other day. Maybe less so with sprinters than other types, but the Game of Life only ran 4 days ago, and it was a winning run too at Chelmsford over 7 furlongs, and to be honest, he won that race pretty good looking. Now, the form isn't particularly good. The runner-up has only won once in 18 starts, so it was a weak race that he won well. He was better than them, and he probably was too well handicapped for the others to get anywhere near him. And on that note, he was running well off marks in the 80s previously, and now he's down to a mark in the low 60s. So he might, in his current guise at the age of 5, he might, if he's on his way back to recovering some of that better form of the past, he might still be a very well handicapped horse. And if he repeats his run of the other day, then he might be too hot to handle for all of his rivals. And given the fact that the stable are in such good form, the Yorkshire outfit, Michael Headington's had 4 runners in recent weeks, and 2 of them have won, including this guy. So, yard in good form, horse in good form, seriously well handicapped, maybe difficult to beat. There is a horse in here, though, who has perhaps a similar profile to an extent, and that is number 6, Fouet, who ran 2 weeks ago. I think he's an interesting player. Like the Game of Life, he was running well off marks in the 80s previously, and you don't have to go all that far back to find it. In fact, last season, 2019, he won over course and distance. Now, he has dropped significantly, £19 down in the handicap since then, mainly because he's not been running all that well, but only 6 or so of those runs have come for his new yard, and I think finally last time they might have just found the key to him. 2 weeks ago at Lingfield, he was at the back of the field and he steadily started to pick off runners one by one. I think that was a platform performance, and Fouet, I think, can come on and at least give the Game of Life something to think about. It might be tomorrow rather than today, Fouet, but he is ready to win. In the red, made all the running a few months back to win. He's got a good draw in stall 2 to give it a go again. And Viola Park is a dual course and distance winner. He's probably a few pounds too high in the handicap, but that might not stop him being competitive or indeed winning. David Probert knows him well. The partnership have won 5 times. Last one is going forward, and that will be Mischievous Rock, which means we're nearly set. So let's hand you back up to our commentator, Richard Hawes.
All in then, 7 furlong. Handicap, and they're off. ABUJA was a little bit slow from the stalls. Mischievous Rock bustled up, however. His treble clef with the white face, and also moving through in the red. And it's in the red who takes the lead early on in the blue and white jacket, just ahead of Mrs. Benson, the horse with the white face, on the outside of the orange and white of Waqaas. They are the front 3, although Viola Park is moving forward from wide out and is another to be front rank. They're tracked by the Game of Life in the white cheek pieces on the inside of treble clef, then Fouet, ABUJA, and last of all is Mischievous Rock as they begin the turn. So it's in the red who shows the way from Waqaas in second place as they begin to make this bend. Viola Park is moving wide on the course. The Game of Life racing in 4th. Just behind the Game of Life in 5th place is Treble Clef. Mrs. Benson just lost a place or 2 with Fouet, ABUJA and Mischievous Rock, but they're very well bunched here. In the red, out in front for Tom Marquand, leads the turn. Waqaas pushed along in second place as the leader tries to get away. The Game of Life shaken up and hasn't immediately picked up, but still has 2.5 furlongs, as they all do, to try and close down the leader in the red, who has kicked about 3 or 4 lengths clear. Waqaas, then the Game of Life. Behind these, Fouet. Down the outside, Mrs. Benson, and Mischievous Rock is staying on as well. The race, similar to our previous race, the leader's kicked well clear here, and in the red is moving 3 or 4 lengths to the good. The Game of Life is in valiant pursuit and is beginning to close the margin slightly as they run to the line, but in the red established far too big a break. In the red beat the Game of Life. Mrs. Benson, Mischievous Rock ran okay in 4th, and they were clear of Fouet, and behind those was Treble Clef.
Well, last time we saw In the Red, he was a winner, making all the running over course and distance, and he's done it again. And he has returned from his hiatus, returned from the enforced break in the same kind of form for Martin Smith, and it's a double on the day for Tom Marquand. The stable haven't had many runners, just a trio of them, and now their first winner since the resumption. And In the Red, well, he's fairly bolted up, and I think if we'd have expected anyone to do that, it might have been the Game of Life. I think this is just a hotter race than the one he won last time up. He's run well, Mrs. Benson, but it's a one-horse race, this In the Red, and Martin Smith, who's sporting a snazzy Star Wars PPE face mask. We might get a shot of him in the paddock for you in due course. Try and grab a word with him as well. But Rachel, I think you have to say that was rather impressive in a low-grade handicap.
Yeah, it was. But the nice thing is it worked out exactly what it looked like on paper. There was only one front runner, and Tom Marquand, who rode him to make all to win back in March in the last race at Kempton before lockdown, did the same exact thing, took the same initiative, and the horse is still on a very, very workable mark. Only got put up a couple of pounds for that win in March, and he's dropped a long way down in the handicap since that previous win, and he loves this track, he loves this trip. And the Game of Life, yes, it might have come a little bit too soon, but with In the Red, this was a much hotter race. And the Game of Life last time sat in behind a very, very hot pace that sort of fell apart. In the Red, he got his own way on the front end, and definitely mark up Mrs. Benson, who, as Richard said in commentary, she had a really good pitch early and then got shuffled back, losing a couple of places before Rob Hornby was able to get her out, and she made up a couple of places to finish a fairly unlucky third. But I would say both In the Red and the Game of Life, when he's reassessed by the handicapper in the next few days, should have more wins in them.
Red was Martin Smith's last winner before lockdown, and he's his first winner on resumption as well. He's done it rather takingly, beating a fairly handicapped horse. Mrs. Benson placed again. That's 8 times in 22 starts without a win, so there's a bit of context to her run, but it was a good one. And Fouwer, a bit disappointing for me. I thought he shaped very well last time, and he travelled through the race as though I think he would have finished a clear second, and then his run just petered out, disappointingly, having got himself into a good position and having travelled well. But in the end, he weakened quite markedly. Not so that horse, In the Red, making all, and anyone who backed him in clover.